tech leaders, it's important that we reach into the communities where opportunities often don't come. In Chicago, that might be on the south and west sides, it could be in your own neighborhood, and to make sure that we take responsibility for recognizing that talent is often distributed evenly, but opportunity is not. And so at Relativity, I'm proud to announce that in 2020, we're going to be starting off with a new program to do more in that category that we call Relativity Fellows. Relativity Fellows is going to reach into some of those underserved communities, along with some partners in those communities, to find some people with high potential who may not have ever had the opportunity to work in tech before. And irrespective of what they've done in the past, we're going to bring them into our offices, we're going to pay them and train them to understand our space in legal tech and to use our software. And then we're going to make sure that they get a job here at Relativity or with our customers and partners. And that kind of vertically integrated apprenticeship is one of the things that we think is important to increase the inclusivity of what's going on here. Relativity is on track to hire 400 people by the end of 2020, adding to the many, many hires that are going on across the whole community. And so it's important that we come together as a community and do everything that we can here. So I'm really excited to be working with Mayor Lightfoot and with World Business Chicago on these initiatives and others. And it's my great pleasure to be able to welcome up Andy Zopp in just a moment. Andy has a pretty incredible career of impact, starting from the legal space, near and dear to my heart, and going on to lead both companies, private and public sector organizations in the C-suite and the boardroom. And now as president and CEO of World Business Chicago, she's helping to increase the inclusivity of that business mission and do more for our great city. Andy?
Thanks, Mike. Good morning. I am ecstatic to be here, not the least of which because I'm in a business where you get to say the words legal and tech in the same sentence. That's pretty exciting for me as a lawyer. And also because this is our third annual Tech Day, where we are highlighting our growing, exponentially growing tech ecosystem here in Chicago with some amazing companies, which, as you heard, just like Relativity, are growing and expanding and thriving here in Chicago. And that's just a message that is just so important for us to continue to get out. Chicago is a place where tech companies can grow, thrive, expand, and really make a difference. And we have so many assets there. We're the #1 place for women-led startups. We have the #1 incubator in the world in 1871, just reclaimed that title a couple weeks ago. We have a diverse economy that supports these businesses, and when you look here, the names of the businesses and companies, you'll see how diverse what they're doing is. This is a place where companies can come and grow and thrive, and we want people to know that. And so we are ecstatic to be able to be here today in this incredible space and have Relativity host us. And to be able to share with you the idea that these companies that you're going to hear from, 2,000 new jobs in the tech and innovation space between this year and next year. So this is an growing environment. But the other piece that's really important is something that Mike touched on, which is behooves us to make sure that we're thinking about how we create, when these jobs come, that we're creating pipelines of opportunity to the residents of our city, particularly the residents on the south and the west sides. Because we have to diversify the tech space. It's critically important, and is where we're growing, it's where our economy is growing, and we're committed to doing that. And most importantly, so are these businesses, as you heard from Relativity. So it's an exciting day for us to be here. This is the work of WBC to grow our city and grow our economy, but to do it inclusively. And it's really a privilege to be here with these incredible entrepreneurs who are making a difference in our city. And it is also my privilege to introduce a leader who cares both about growing our city economically, but importantly, making sure that we do that inclusively and making opportunities for all of our residents, and that's our mayor, Lori Lightfoot.
Thanks, Andy, and thanks, Mike. I know a little bit about Relativity from my days at the law firm, but as I admitted, I'm not the one who used it. The young lawyers that work for me used it extensively, and it's a great platform. But it also, I think, highlights the importance of making sure that we are trumpeting the successes of Chicago-based tech businesses. Chicago Next, I think, is an important opportunity for us to do just that. And each of the 15 local tech companies that have added or will add a combined 2,000 jobs in Chicago in 2019 and 2020. It's wonderful to be here to celebrate Tech Day. From startups to Fortune 500s, tech companies are putting down roots and really growing exponentially in Chicago. These companies are opening new offices, expanding offices, and making more room so they can add 21st century jobs. So it should come as no surprise to anyone that our great city leads the nation for corporate relocations and expansions. I also want to take this moment to especially call attention to something that I'm particularly proud of. Right here in our city, we are reshaping the future of civic and government tech. The talented individuals in these fields are veterans of U.S. digital service, the U.S. governance 18F, and the city of Chicago. They've started their own businesses that are creating new tools, new jobs, and new ways for government and residents to work together. So when we talk about inclusion and transparency and accountability, it's Chicago's tech community that is building the tools, analyzing the city's data, and helping deliver results for my team and Chicago's residents. And I want Chicago's tech community to hear me on this issue. We see you as vital and essential partners in Chicago's future. And I just had the opportunity to speak to a group of them and ask, what do you need from the city of Chicago to help your businesses grow and thrive? And they weren't shy about saying pipeline is the number one issue, and I hear that over and over again. We've got to create more opportunities, and I appreciate the work that Relativity is going to do on that to make sure that we're building an inclusive environment so we have a pipeline of talent from all over our city to help support this growing and thriving tech industry. That's an important thing that we have to be focused on. Excuse me. I also want to say that we are eager, ready, willing, and able to work with our tech community to be successful. And I want to highlight one company in particular that's part of this expansion, and it's Evanston Technology Partners. Now, they're based here in Chicago, I hasten to add, but they became one of the largest credentialed security partners with IBM in the world, with 34 certified associates. And they also recently opened a cybersecurity operation in Bronzeville. The business already had 40 jobs in the neighborhood, and they will be adding another 90 jobs in Bronzeville next year. That's what success looks like in this industry. As mayor, my vision for Chicago is one where we use an equity lens to bring strategic investments to communities with the greatest need. And this is how we build a truly diversified economy and separate ourselves from other cities in the region and in the country, because we're building on our strengths and supporting multiple sectors of our economy at the same time. And the tech community has to be a vibrant and important part of that. Together as partners, we can be a city that ensures residents in every community have the tools, resources, and skills they need to be part of Chicago's rapidly growing tech ecosystem, where economic opportunity is fully accessible to all of our residents and not just the lucky few, and where the 21st century tech jobs of today and tomorrow are not limited to only a handful of communities, but are found across Chicago, including on the south and the west sides. This is the Chicago we need to build and we know is possible. I want to thank you again for your work and happy Tech Day. Now, I'd like to invite all the tech leaders here to join me so we can get some photographs and celebrate your great work. Any questions?
Mayor, how's the budget looking, and are there going to be any changes, any amendments added, anything else that we should be looking for today?
Yeah, I think we're in good shape. You may have seen that we added an amendment last Wednesday. That's being, I think, discussed in the budget hearing today to account for some small changes, but also to address a couple of revenue issues. But I think we're in good shape. We continue to make sure that we're reaching out to members of the City Council. We're going to be putting out some additional information today. It feels like when I gave my budget speech at the end of October, that was about 1,000 years ago. So we're doing some work over the course of this week to remind people what's in the budget, both in terms of revenue, but also investments, and then how we were able to address the $838 million budget gap. But I think we're on track.
The independent monitors report came out on
Yeah.
Friday. They only met 13.
Yeah.
Your reaction to that and I have a follow-up.
Yeah, I read the monitor's report and met briefly with the internal CPD team in advance of it. Some of it's not a surprise because the process got started, I think, much later than when anybody anticipated. But I think if you look at the substance of what the monitor's report were, there were some encouraging words in there for CPD about the progress that they have made. But look, the reality is we know in these initial stages that we're not going to be hitting every single mark, but my expectation is that we're going to be moving on a path towards meeting them. So I expect the second report to be show that we have made a lot of additional progress. I have confidence in the team within CPD, and one of my focuses in this interim period before we choose a new superintendent that we don't slip back. So we're spending a lot of time making sure that they're on track, that they're meeting their milestone, and that we're also giving them the support that they need to be successful.
When is Charlie coming back in? How much will the need for experience with a consent decree play into your role in selecting the next superintendent?
So Beck is back in town this week. I expect to see him tomorrow. I had a conversation with him over the weekend. Look, you need somebody who has the bandwidth to understand, in my view, that a consent decree presents an opportunity and not just a negative thing and cloud that hangs over a police department. So that will definitely factor into my consideration. Again, my expectation is that the police board will be issuing its application later this week, and the process will begin in earnest. But you got to have somebody who has. Ideally, you want somebody who has some experience in managing a consent decree. Go ahead, John, I'm sorry.
On the budget, you're counting on this ambulance money for a big part of that, 838. Do you know when that approval might be coming from the feds?
My expectation is that we will hear something this week.
You hear something this week?
Yes.
And you're confident that it'll be coming to
Yes.
out?
Yes.
How are the conversations that you're having or your staff is having, and they're saying, don't worry about it, that ambulance money's all good?
Yeah, I mean, this is, for those of you who are familiar with it, this is making sure that we get a much more fulsome reimbursement for ambulance rides that we provide to people who are, for example, on Medicaid. Those conversations have been ongoing for months. So this is not a new thing, and I'm not directly involved in those, but I get a regular briefing from my team, and so based upon that and the conversations have been had, I think we're in good shape. Back there, Bill.
On the budget, do you mean to say that you can balance this budget without an additional property tax levy?
Correct.
How are you doing that?
You mean beyond what we've already talked about? Yeah, well, we've done it through making sure that we are looking at a number of different efficiencies. We've made some additional cuts in personnel, but no, I feel very comfortable that, you know, what we talked about before is the only property tax increase, which is a small increase in the library levy in order to facilitate the opening of Sunday hours. You will not see in this budget a large property tax increase. We don't need to do that this year, and we're not going to. Now, I can't say that we're going to be able to hold that off forever, particularly if we don't get the casino in the spring session. But I remain optimistic about that and getting over the finish line with both. Craig.
Last question.
Mayor, how do you view the desire of a number of aldermen to restore the budget for community policing?
Yeah, I think that we need to have more conversation with them about that. You know, obviously the CPD's requests regarding community policing were on the basis of a context where they're under consent decree, and community policing is a significant function of the consent decree. So the budget decisions that were made by CPD were made within that context. What I feel optimistic about is a pilot program that started and will expand. It's called the DCO program, and it's making sure, and we really borrow this from New York, making sure that there's a specific officer in every district whose really primary mission is problem solving, and problem solving by actively engaging with members of that police district and then taking it back to the leadership of the district to make sure the district is being responsive to the needs of that community. And now there are a lot of things that will bubble up over the course of those conversations and aren't just going to be related to the police, but that program was piloted, I believe, in 25 to overwhelming success. It's going to be expanded, and so that's a lot of what we're looking to in terms of really galvanizing an infrastructure around community policing. So I think we will have those conversations with aldermen, explain that to them, and that there is a rationale for the resources that were allocated in the budget. So I feel comfortable that they'll understand that once we do a better job of explaining it to them.
Minimum wage, are you gonna have to make any tweaks on that?
I think we're in good shape with that.
You think
Yeah.
need to change the typical
Well, I think we have made the compromises that were asked of us in part, and I think the rest of it is in place. Look, I know from a lot of research going back many years that one of the surest ways to lift people out of poverty is to increase the floor for wages, and a minimum wage does that. So passing a minimum wage bill is part of our budget package that will accelerate getting to 15 by 2021 is, I think, adding another tool in our toolkit to really address generational poverty and low income and stagnant wages. So I'm excited about the opportunity that's going to be presented to the City Council. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Minorities?
Thank you.
Thank you.